It is almost noon on November 3rd. I should probably be writing. Also, actually currently have my Sims game playing. I decided to create a new Sims game with all of the characters from my novel as Sims, which was maybe not the most productive decision I've ever made, but I made it. I also wanted to quickly go over the books that I read in October. So one of my goals in October was to start reading some young adult series that I started years ago because, again, I've been a viewer of BookTube for years, and a couple of years ago I was a viewer of like the 100% young adult side of YouTube, and I still have a lot of those series unfinished on my shelves, and I feel like they're like somehow weighing me down, and I wanted to start cycling those off of my shelves. In that venture, October was successful, however not enjoyable. I had wanted to read this duology by Margaret Stohl. The first book is Icons and the second is Idols. I had read Icons, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and I recall enjoying it. I'm not sure why. I read 250 pages. I don't know anything about the main characters or what they want or why they want it or what's happening to them or why anything is happening in their lives. And it just feels like a series of really strange and unrelated events just keep on happening to them. And I don't know why, and I don't know what they're doing about it. And it was a very strange reading experience. It was very disjointed and very disappointing. I think I ended up going back to my older review and re-rating this from 4 stars to 2 stars. It was okay. I mean, I'm sure if 4 years ago me enjoyed these, then someone who is currently enjoying adult literature would enjoy these as well. I do recall finding the story quite fun and fast-paced, but I didn't figure out what reason I would have to read them now or to finish reading these. So these will be donated at the old college try, and I'm happy with that. So one of the other things I had wanted to do in October was read a couple of books for October. I only managed to read one, and that was Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I am really glad that I read it. It is my first Gaskell novel that I have read. I read it partly on my Kindle, and I partly listened to it. And I will link the version that I listened to down below. It's a free version from LibriVox. I highly recommend it. I think it's well narrated, well produced, and overall I think the story is absolutely lovely. I think it was so charming, and the writing was absolutely gorgeous. Going into the novel, though, I didn't realize that it was incomplete. So when I got to the end of it, I was quite disappointed in that. But overall, I still found everything about the experience to be enjoyable. So I gave it, I think, 4 stars. I still have to think on it a little bit more. If you don't know what it's about, it follows a young girl named Molly, who is the only daughter of a physician in a rural English town back in Victorian times, and her mother died when she was quite young, and so it kind of follows some hijinks that she gets into. And with those being my 2 goals in October, and with me having only read those 2 books, doesn't seem like a productive reading month. And again, I don't think October was for me. But that being said, I did read a couple of other things, all of which were Animorphs related. So if you don't know what the Animorphs is, it's a about 60-ish book series written for children. It was written in the 90s, and it follows a group of 5 young children who happen upon an alien who gives them the ability to morph into animals, and they were written as a way to kind of entice children to be more interested in animals and biology. And for me, when I was a child, they definitely accomplished that, and also made me a lover of science fiction. So I did end up reading the 49th book in this series. This one is kind of towards the end. It is called The Diversion, and it follows one of the children, Tobias. And then, having read that and been Googling the Animorphs a little bit more frequently, my phone decided to send me an article on why the Animorphs should be revived and that sort of thing. And I read the article, and then I read the comments on the article. And somebody linked to his fan fiction saying that he'd kind of done exactly that. He'd updated the Animorphs story for the late 2010s with like that like level of technology, and also aged up the characters a little bit and was dealing more with the human aspects of participating in this alien war and dealing like more with like the characters' more human struggles rather than just like strictly sci-fi. And I was like, yeah, sure, because I have always been a huge fanfiction snob. But later, in the comments, someone else commented back to him, being like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you to update your fanfiction." And so somehow in my mind, that made me think that, oh, I should go check this out now. And I did, and I am talking about it. Obviously, I am counting it, which, if you think less well of me, I get that. I would as well, fair enough. But it was the best thing that I read this month. So I think the author of this fanfiction, I think his name is James Aaron or Aaron James or something like that. I'll link it below. I think he's a really talented writer. I think if it was an original work, it would be an edit or two away from publication. I thought it was amazing. But anyways, while I was reading the fan fiction, I was wondering how the author would end up reconciling some of the choices he was making with some of the plot points that he would have to include if he was going to be writing an Animorphs fan fiction. And I realized that I didn't really recall in the original series how those choices had been handled, so I ended up picking up and rereading The Pretender. This is the 23rd book in the Animorphs series, so a bit earlier than the other one, and this one also follows Tobias. If you can't tell, she is my favorite character, but this one sort of deals with who Tobias's father was and how they find that out. So all in all, I would say that I read 5 things this month. I read half of Icons, Wives and Daughters, the 2 Animorphs books, and the first volume of the fan fiction I would count. I'm not going to count the second volume because it's incomplete, and also counting fan fiction at all is a little iffy. But yeah, with the 2 Animorphs books I read, I can't rate these at all. I am not objective when it comes to these. I can realize that they are not the best literature ever, but I love them unconditionally regardless of that. And even like just reading them, and it took me an hour to read both of these, but it was actually quite a struggle. The writing was quite muggy to me. It's written for such young children, and I'm just more used to a higher literary standard fare now that these were quite difficult for me to get through, actually, even though I read them both in an hour. So yeah, that was my October. In the comments, tell me what you think about counting fan fiction as reading. I'd be really interested to hear other people's perspectives. I am a glorious snob about it historically, so I feel really weird about counting it for myself. But I would love to hear other opinions. And also, how is NaNoWriMo going? Like, share, subscribe, that stuff. Okay, bye.